All right. Well, it has been a really interesting day today. Um, I made some discoveries about some weird stuff, some weird coincidences that I've kind of discovered from my past. Um, and I'll get to that in a second. But it all started because, and I try to tell my Patreon guys this. I'm like, oh my, you'll never guess what I've discovered. And everyone's like, shut up, you're a bitch. Upload videos. And I'm like, and then Karina's like, what are you doing down there? And I'm like, I'm a bitch. And she's like, you are a bitch. And I'm just like, all right. And then I just like close the door and I come to make the videos. But no, seriously. Um, today I started the day talking to a couple of the producers of my documentary, Idiot Savant. Um, a couple of the producers and the director. The director's name is Stephen Gabriel. And Steve and I have like a weird relationship. I mean, you guys know the story where basically I had him come down and film Copbusters when I was 20. And it like I tried to like force him at gun. I was like, stay here and make a TV show for me for Spike. And I was smoking crack back then. Anyway, he took a lot of footage of me, and it's the nuts and bolts of the documentary. I mean, he has hours and hours of footage of me when I'm 20, when I was a drug dealer, got pounds of drugs everywhere, I have a gun. I don't know where I'm running around with a gun, listening to like underground hip hop. I mean, I really thought that I was like on some gangster shit back then. Silly. Um, what am I talking about? Oh yeah. So I talked to him today because we were supposed to premiere the documentary at Cannes Film Festival in France this May, which is soon. I mean, it's May, like in a week or something. But of course, COVID-19 came, the coronavirus, and now who knows what the hell's. Oh well, it's getting postponed until July, and then I got an email the other day. Well, now it's might be postponed until 2021. They're just basically canceling 2000. They're like rescheduling 2020. Well, we'll do the Olympics then. I had Pink Floyd or Roger Waters tickets for September. Oh, we'll do it in 2021. Oh, your film that you've been working on for years, premiere it next year. So we're kind of like, everyone's kind of we really can't decide as as a group. We can't come to a unanimous decision about what to do with the film. I personally, I just want to put it on Amazon Prime, sell it for $10, and call it a day. Originally, we wanted to go to the festivals, get some press attention, get in a bidding war with the streaming networks, license it to Netflix or HBO or something like that, and then but not sell exclusive rights, just licensing. And a couple of my friends that have produced documentaries, that's how they did it. They don't. It's not like a straight IP acquisition. So anyway, we're kind of like undecided about what we're gonna do, but in the course of that, there's something called deliverables when you do a film. And basically what that is like for a documentary, I don't really know how it works for a feature length film because I've never produced one, but I am one of the producers for Idiot Savant. So I get like all these boring phone calls and email, I'll get a phone call, be like, yeah, I'm listening. I'll throw it on speaker and just start beating off to porn. And then, but like, it's on mute, of course. I just don't really pay attention, but there's so many of these calls going on that eventually I've picked up a thing or two. But so there's this thing called deliverables, and it's basically the consent forms. It's all the legal stuff. The licensing for the music. There's two sides. There's the publishing side, and then there's the artist side or whatever. And you have to pay both sides, and then there's the consent forms, and then there's like also like a research team that essentially substantiates claims that you make in a documentary, because you can't lie in a documentary. You just can't do it. You can't be like, in 1985 a young writer was born with an abnormally big whammer hammer. You can't do shit like that, because then you're lying. You can't do that. I mean, in my videos I'm like, everything I say is bullshit. so I can really say whatever I want. But in a documentary, you can't do that. You can't be like, well, this is a true story, but it's bullshit. You can't really do that. I don't know. It's weird. That would have been my vote, but you can't do that. So they're kind of like, we were supposed to have have the cut done by March. That didn't happen because coronavirus came and everyone's like, and they're like, we've been on quarantine. So we didn't really have to do the research part of it in the deliverables. That's kind of like the last phase right before the festival season, right before we go to cons, just so you have your deliverables ready so that in case somebody wants to buy it or license it, you have all that. You're like, okay, here's all the legal shit. And so since everything got postponed, they started researching and they got to the Mike Virgin part of my story. And they're like, well, this is kind of interesting. I was like, what? A pedophile cult in South Florida where murders may or may not have happened? That's interesting. They're like, this is literally the most interesting part of your story. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And so they started like doing research about it. And, I'm bummed that it's not going to premiere at cons. And maybe it still will. Maybe we'll wait until next year. I hope not. And would it have been that cool anyway? With like a bunch of celebrities that wouldn't get it, like Paris Hilton sitting there and she's like, um, I don't get it. He just did a bunch of drugs and there was like some rap music in it too. That's kind of boring. I don't really get it. And then I would have been the guy there like, oh, hey, what's up, Kevin Bacon? I'm Ryan. He's like, hey, Ryan, I'm Kevin. I'm like, yeah, you just watched the movie about me smoking crack and shooting heroin. He's like, oh, yeah, I saw it. It was great, man. How do you say that shit like that to like real actors? Like, So it would have been interesting. But anyway, so they start looking into the Mike Virgin. And I know I'm rambling. I don't really give a fuck though. Whatever. If you like my stuff, you do. If you don't, you don't. You're gonna bitch. You're gonna bitch. There's nothing I can do about it. But so they start looking into the Mike Virgin thing, and they start finding some pretty weird shit, some pretty weird connections. That Mike Virgin, in what I experienced in West Palm Beach, was actually tied to a larger network out of Boca Raton, and it was all tied to a certain person that was just suicided. Is this coming together for anyone? I have proof of this. And so what do you do when you have something like this? It is something that's it's like we can like prove it because there's been like people researching it and they're like, whoa, this is weird. What a weird coincidence. Whoa, what the fuck? And they just like went down some rabbit hole. And I'm not the kind of guy that goes down rabbit holes. I'm aware that there's very bizarre conspiracy theories. QAnon is one of them. The Pizzagate, all that stuff. I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, someone like me, I'm like, it's Republican or, alt-right propaganda. But with that being said, I've never wanted to go down that rabbit hole, even if that stuff is going on. And I hate chomos. I think they should all be fucking shot and left in the road like a dog to bleed to death and die. Everyone's like, you're a liberal, you're a gun-hating liberal. Yeah, right. You think that I seriously want gun control? I think everyone in the country should have a gun, and all this crazy shit would happen. You think people would go shoot up movie theaters if we're all strapped? Fuck no. The guys that do stuff like that are pussies anyway. If they know that they're going to get shot by everybody because everybody has a gun, they're not going to do it. There's way, way, way less psychopaths than there are just like normal people that would protect themselves with it. But that's not really the point. The point being is that there's some validities to some of that stuff. Not all of it. I'm not like, oh my god, I'm woke now. Fuck it, I'm woke. It's a storm. This is all so Trump can arrest chomos. But there's some weird shit going on with Epstein, for sure. And junkie me just happened to be like entangled in some weird shit in Southern Florida, and I might have some very like compelling evidence, shall we say. More on that to come. But so just so you know, I'm just letting you know, if I'm suicided, if like they find me like hanging and I have like a banana coming out of my mouth and I'm like bloody plunger sticking out of my asshole and I'm just hanging, and headlines, Ryan Leone is found hanging with a banana in his mouth and a bloody plunger. Everyone would be like, predictable. I knew he was a weirdo, the weirdo drug addict. Well, anyway, if that happens, look into it. Look into Mike Virgin, even though he's dead, but look into that whole thing. And we'll talk about this soon. Yeah, it's some trippy shit. It really is. We like connected some dots. We're like, whoa, what the fuck? And normally people, that's the weird thing about conspiracy theories. It's like, you're like, dude, his sister's name was Kelly. Kelly's husband's name is Ken. 2K is Christmas. You know what I'm talking about, fool? Now, what does that mean? I don't know, but it means some shit. Or, you see that elevator? That elevator's a child molester. It's a chomo. How's an elevator a child molester? It fucking opens. And I'm like one of those pieces of shit that I'm like, sounds believable. I'm just gonna pass it along. I'm like walking with Karina. I'm like, look at that. That elevator, don't take that. That's a chomo. She's like, how is an elevator? I don't know, it's a chomo. She's like, oh my god, let's take the stairs. I'm like, yeah, totally. Like, comment, subscribe, patreon.com/Ryan Leone. I have no idea how long that intro is, but I'd imagine that people are gonna bitch at me. You fell off. You're a bitch. Shut up. Who cares? Don't watch it then. Watch something else. Go watch, I don't know, go watch a fitness video or something. So you can be angry. Yeah, I'm angry, but I can do push-ups. All right. So anyway, so where are we in the Pimping Chronicles? Sorry about that intro. It's just, I don't know. I got chewed out on Patreon. Like, fuck, you're lying about the Epstein. Okay, whatever. I don't even know if it's true. I'm just simply saying we found some shit that's kind of interesting that we should probably present to the public. And we will. And if I die, so what? So what? I should have died a long time ago anyway. I've been living on the edge for way too long. Okay, so last time on the pimping video, we talked about how I had gone down to that acting studio. How Dave had like, do you want to come meet Quentin Tarantino? I'm like, yeah, for sure. And then we get down there, and when I see stuff like that, when I see this lady that basically is trying to like whore out these 21-year-old actresses that come to LA starry-eyed, that they just want to be famous. You see it all the time, you see like some like sweet girl from Alabama move out to LA and they're like, I just want to be in the movies. Like a year later, they're like butt naked with like a spiked collar on, like getting walked on a leash and like wearing bondage boots or something, shit like that like actually happens. Their dreams just get shattered and they basically figuratively and literally become whores of the industry. And it's not just women, it's guys too. I've heard some really crazy, disgusting shit about some pretty famous people, like what they've done to get famous. And it's like, oh, Jesus, really? Yeah. So, anyway, and then you see something like this. So this lady takes advantage of these young aspiring these thespians, right? These wannabe actors and actresses. And then they use the like people like me, we're like, I had no idea like what that was, but like, oh, we have some of the most beautiful starlets in the industry. Is that it? I don't, however that bitch talked. And so I come and I'm like, yeah, but see, I'm like coming with my girlfriend, and right when I got there, I was like, damn, like I'm kind of being used as some pawn to like perpetuate her scam, because it's a scam. I mean, I looked it up on like Yelp. I think it was Yelp or something. And I like read some story about how Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston, when they were dating, were like at some restaurant right next door to it. And they like saw, like someone from the little acting school saw them. One of the people that, worked there or whatever was like, we're doing an acting studio. The kids would love it if you could come by. So they just like showed up, and like for years they like, they made like some statue of Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt. And they're like, they were here. They support us. They're just, and that's really like how The film industry, that's how all the entertainment shit is. It's all smoking mirrors. And like the older you get or the more you're around it, you get more and more disillusioned by it. But like at this point, I was still relatively new. And then this guy, Dave, who like I guess knew Michael Levy, I never had heard of him. Predator 2 and Tomb Raider. Someone like gave me a whole list. They're like, this is what his IMDb was. And I had looked at it too. And all I remember is Predator 2 and Die Hard 2. But it doesn't really matter. So this guy Dave had been in jail with him, and then he knew Danny Trejo, and he knew Danny Trejo from like the recovery community, which is, you see that a lot too in the recovery world. There's an old adage in LA that says, if you want to sell a screenplay, go to an AA meeting. And you see that shit a lot, You see people like in the parking lot, like, yeah, oh, dude, yeah, congratulations on 17 days, man. Super cool, super cool. Oh, yeah, yeah. And then they like pulled out some like rolled screenplay out of like their back pocket. They're like, yeah, oh, shit, I just happen to have this script I wrote here, man. Check it out. Poor producers like just got off a run, like still like going through post-acute withdrawal. You see that shit a lot. So this guy Dave, was basically, I don't even know what his deal was. I don't know how Steve knew him. Who knows how he knows these characters? But it almost became more of a novelty to me and Zach. Like Zach would always call and be like, dude, China just left me a VM voicemail. I'm like, dude, CVM. He's like, Chinese voicemail, and like we'd have these little inside jokes. I don't know if that was one. I'm just making that one up, but you know what I mean? We'd have these like inside jokes about Dave and China calling. It's fucking hot. We're going through a heat wave here. I don't know what it's like in the rest of the country, but LA is horrible right now. So I kind of like left him, I went home. Karina was pissed that I had dragged her down there and she got all dressed up. She's pregnant. She doesn't want to come to shit like that. Santa's had dipped out early, and Zach got some good footage of it. Basically, me putting this lady on blast, which was good footage for the documentary. Pretty classic footage. That's like that $1 million footage that like you're just very fortunate that somebody actually recorded. And when I get back to Santa Barbara, I'm living with Jeff now. Karina's still living with her parents, but it's the kind of thing where she sleeps over all the time. So she's basically sleeping with me, and I'm that annoying roommate where I'm like, yeah, my chick's just going to sleep over. And then she's like, taking measurements, like, 'cause she wants to put in like chandeliers and shit. And your other roommate's like, what the fuck? I thought she's just like sleeping over once in a while. Kind of looks like she's moving in, bro. And that's kind of what it was. So as all that's going on, is that my phone? I'm waiting for something, but doesn't matter. We'll finish the video. While all this is going on, the documentary starts going into full effect. So we have it all planned. Zach, like I said last time, he has an incorporated business. So Jim is going to be the screenwriter. How would you write a documentary? I don't know. We don't really know. I mean, I guess there's some narrative thread with voiceover, and that's kind of the way that we were going to approach it. And we needed it to be narrated by somebody that was famous. And Santos had already gotten some developments had happened with the Love in Vain script, and he started casting it. He had casted Blair at that point, and he had also cast Damien, and it was going to be Nick Stahl. It was going to be between Emil Hirsch and Nick Stahl. And I like both of them, but I really, really like Nick from Bully. That's one of my favorite movies, and I was really hoping that we could get him. So when Santos told me that he had gotten a letter of intent, which means that like he didn't sign on officially, and that's very common in the film industry, it's a letter of intent. It's basically just used to secure more financing. Like Nick signs it. Yes, I intend to be in this movie, but it's not a binding contract. It doesn't really mean anything. And it's actually a very sleazy tool. Not saying everybody, I mean, it's a common thing done in the film industry, but a lot of people take advantage of that. They're like, dude, I can get Robert Downey Jr. in here, And you're like, hey, Robert, can you sign this LOI? Yeah, sure, that doesn't mean anything. And then you go to finance, you're like, I got Robert Downey to be in my $300,000 indie film, and they're just like, here's 300,000, and then he never does it. So it's pretty common. So just because you have an LOI doesn't really mean shit. But because Nick, it was looking like he was going to play Damien, and we got some financing at that point. We got a number of people that were looking at it. The owners of, I don't know, one of the bigger porn companies, I think Brazzers or something. Some people that were big in the skateboard industry that Zach had brought. So there were like multiple people interested in funding the Wasting Talent movie. It was going to be called Love and Pain, and I hated the title, by the way. Santos, if you're watching this, I fucking hate the title. I still do to this day. It's a fucking whack title. There's a Japanese anime movie called Love and Pain already. What the fuck? Wasting Talent's the name of the book. That should be the name of the movie. Doesn't really matter. But so now that I know that Nick is there's more likely than not he's going to be playing Damien in the film adaptation of my book. So I don't know how to contact him. He had Instagram at the time, but he had like one of those he didn't, it wasn't like a celebrity account. It was one of those fake accounts. Like, so now that like I started knowing more, famous people, I mean, I really didn't know that many, but I knew a few, like I'd met James Woods and partied with him one night. But I didn't like have like a whole social circle with a bunch of people that were like legitimately well-known people at that time. But the more that I started being around people like that, you'd see that they have fake Facebooks, they have fake Instagrams where it's not their real name and it's just for friends or family. And I knew that he had one of those, but it was private. So he had with a private Instagram, you have to send a follow request and then they have to accept it. And I had done that and he never accepted it. So I really had no way of contacting him. But I really wanted him to narrate the documentary. And Santos and I have always had like a love-hate relationship. I do love him and he's my friend and he's done quite a bit for me, especially when I was living down in Encino. When I first met him, he wrote me in prison. He's done a lot of nice stuff for me. He's put money on my books and he's been there for me. But we get in fights all the time. Like we get in like really like hardcore fights where we're like, fuck you, punk. Like slam the phone. Karina, when I first met her and she'd hear me talking to him, she'd be like, oh my God, are you going to fight that guy? I'm like, fuck no. That guy's like fucking 280 pounds. He'll kill me. 5'6", he's like 6'7". This huge giant and just pick me up with like 2 fingers. But we would get really like bad screaming matches all the time. At the time that I wanted Nick to narrate the documentary, Will and Santos and I were like in some sort of, we weren't talking or something, which happens all the time with us. Right now, we're on good terms. He's going to be on my channel at some point soon, but it's a roller coaster with me and him. I don't know. Love-hate thing. He was like an older brother or something. So I really couldn't get Nick. But that's kind of what we were planning. And Jim loved that idea. He thought Jim was a great actor. He had really liked a movie that Nick was in called In the Bedroom, which was nominated for an Academy Award. And Nick, he's a well-respected actor in Hollywood. So Zach started calling in favors to start filming the initial interviews for the film. And what we were going to do is, just like with Resurrection, we were going to make a sizzle. We were going to make a marketing deck. We were trying to secure funding for the film. The funding, we had estimated it was going to cost like $175,000 to make it, something like that, 175, or it was like 180, something. It's somewhere in that ballpark, 175, 180. And so we started looking for funding. And to do that, we had to start filming, like I said, the sizzle. So at one point he had, he called in a bunch of favors, and he called in like some of like his really big, well-connected, like editors, filmers, whatever. They came to my parents' house. Well, they had planned to come to my parents' house and to do like a whole day of interviews. They were going to interview me. They were going to interview one of my best friends at the time named Max. They were going to interview my mom and dad. They were going to interview my friend Brian, who was one of my best friends growing up that I didn't talk to anymore. But we wanted like some of my childhood friends to be interviewed to explain what I was like before I ever was involved in any sort of butt fucking conga line, like pre-BFCL, post-BFCL. They wanted that on the timeline. It was important for the integrity of the film. So they kind of like compiled this whole thing, and he had people come up, and I was going to have one of my sixth grade teachers interviewed as well. So the day that we had that shoot go down, like 10 cars came up to my parents' house. I mean, it was like a legitimate, it looked like a movie was being filmed there, like big, like moving truck sized vehicles had pulled up. They brought like spotlights, they brought, boomsticks, they had a bunch of red cams. It's exactly what it would look like if they were actually filming a real movie on location. A studio film, independent film, doesn't matter. That's how big this shoot was. And my parents, I think at that point, because I wasn't living with them anymore, I was living with Jeff at that point, because we had, basically gotten the gay psychic out of there. The whole room still smelled like mystical barn animals. I was like, you smell that, babe? She's like, what's up? I was like, I don't know. There's glitter everywhere. I smell unicorns. Who knows what kind of fucking psychedelic barn animals that this fool had in here. And she's like, I'm so knowing. I was like, yeah, I know. But so we were living in that room. And when my parents saw this production and they saw the scope of it and like how professional it was and how much money it looked like was behind it, I think that's the first time ever that they like were like, oh, maybe his book and all that's not just a hobby. Like maybe you can actually make money off of it. And then Zach was like, they love Zach. Zach was one of those people that like everyone's parents just love. He's just, and especially my parents. He didn't have like neck tattoos, and like I have friends that are like missing limbs from abscesses. Like all of my friends look like Walking Dead extras or something. They're all fucked up. They limp, they nod out, they puke, they fart, they smell like shit, yellow skin. They look like zombies, for some like kid that's like hasn't been uh corrupted by the drug world to come over. My parents are just like, thank God, maybe he's turning a new leaf. He's going to be around normal people with normal careers now, not like people that come over. My mom's like, what do you do? And they're like, I don't know. We pick mushrooms off horse shit or cow shit, and we bag it up and sell it to college kids. It's like a 40-year-old telling my mom that. I really would bring people like that around my parents, and they're like so desensitized to it, they don't really care. So we did this big shoot, and we interviewed me, we interviewed Max, we interviewed my parents. We did this whole thing. One of my old teachers, Tim, and at the end of it, my friend Max has a lot of money. And like he had inherited family money, and he had started his own company. He was making like real money, like well over six figures, maybe seven figures. I don't think so. Maybe. I don't know. He had a lot of money though. He always had nice cars, had a nice big house, and he was my age, and I'd known him since high school. And he was like a really bad kid. He'd gotten sent away, and then he got sent away for like 3 years, and he came back, and he was reformed. Him and I had like a love-hate relationship as well. I'd left the bloody tampon in his ashtray. I don't know if I ever told you guys about that, but at one point, yeah, I think I did. When me and my girlfriend were like living in his Tahoe, and he kicked us out because my girlfriend took out her bloody tampon so we could have sex in the back of his Tahoe, and like she like left in the ashtray, and the next day it's like, what the fuck is this? And we're like, we don't know. He's like, what? Somebody just broke in here and put the bloody tampon? We were like, obviously. You think we're dirtbags or something? I can't believe he would think that. He'd be like, get out. But I'm going to be on the street, Max. Get out. You're a liar. All right. So that happened. So like, it was kind of like we said, I have a lot of that with a lot of people. I kind of have an extreme personality. So I have like peaks and valleys with people, ups and downs, falling out, then I come back. So he saw this shoot, and it was impressive, like these guys were like cold professionals, no personality. They were like statues. They felt like they were like, London guards or something. They didn't talk. They were like fucking film robots or something. They just like no personality when come and like film stuff. And, like you try to make conversation with them and then they just say something like really cool, but like monotone, like, "Hey man, how you doing?" They'd be like, "I'm all right. Just coming from a shoot at Dr. Dre's house earlier today. That's it." What? Dr. Dre's house? That's crazy. I swear to God, they said that too. That's not just like me trying to think of something clever to say. They told us that they had filmed at Dr. Dre's house that day. And so, like, the combination of all this stuff, seeing all the equipment, seeing the professionalism of the shoot, seeing the whole operation go down, had really left an impression on. It's probably Mickey Avalon. We're about to do a Zoom thing for the channel. Uh, Sorry, Mickey. I will get to you. But Max, it really left an impression on Max. And because he had money, he's like, "I want in." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I want to throw money in on this." I'm like, "How much?" He's like, 80,000. I'm like, "Well, maybe. It's a maybe. I'll get back to you." But so like really he had, I don't know if it was 80,000, but he had committed to putting a substantial amount of money into it. And he told us that he couldn't do it all at once, that it would be like, little by little, and I think he gave us like 10,000 in the very beginning, you know, um, just to get things rolling. So once we had a little money and once we had him as a financier, we used that money to try to make more money. And we did the marketing deck, which, marketing decks can be expensive. They can be like $1,500 if done right. And we got like a pretty expensive one, like a legitimate one, like where they break out like market analytics. They're like, "Okay, this is your core audience. Ryan will probably appeal to a bunch of gay dudes." Huge market there. I'm like, "Hey, what is that supposed to mean?" They're like, "Dude, you're feminine." I'm like, "What the fuck? I'm hardcore." They're like, "Bro, you've got color tattoos. This shit's gay." I'm like, "Look how you smoke, bro." I'm like, "Okay." Credit where credit's due. Fuck it. So, we'd have like those kind of things. So it started like forming where we'd have the marketing deck, we had presentations, and we had a really good sizzle where like it made it look like it was going to be some like award-winning movie. The only problem was it wasn't the kind of movie that I wanted to be part of. It was like some Lifetime movie. It was like, Zach had worked on the sizzle. And all day he's like texting me. He's back in LA or Long Beach at this point. I'm up in Santa Barbara at Jeff's house. And, all day he's sending me texts. He's like, "Dude, the sizzle is just going to be so bomb." I'm like, "How bomb?" He's like, "Can never be too bomb." I was like, "Well, I mean," so he keeps telling me shit like that. And finally he sends it to me. And I'm like, see, I'm thinking I grew up like watching, I liked Another Day in Paradise, which was an Eddie Little. Larry Clark had made it out of an Eddie Little novel. If you guys have not seen that movie or read that book, both are incredibly good. Favorite drug movie. In fact, I'll do a whole video on drug movies at some point. I always say I'll do shit. I'm going to make a poker video, and then I fucking never do it. And then people are like, "You're a bitch." And I'm like, "Yeah." I grew up like watching that. I grew up reading all sorts of like, outlaw writers and, Burroughs. And I read Irvine Welsh. I was a big fan of Train Spotting and Porno and Skag and Glue and all that stuff. Ecstasy. I really liked Hubert Selby Jr. did Requiem for a Dream and Last Exit to Brooklyn. So I grew up like really like deep in the counterculture. I was one of those guys. I was like, the first time I shot heroin, I was like, "Let's get a Hot Topic. I want to get a Velvet Underground hoodie." Everyone's like, "What a weirdo." And like, I just completely immersed myself in that culture. So when a documentary, and then so when I wrote Wasting Talent, that was basically like, I don't know, a love letter to all the cult junkie shit that I grew up just like loving. I'm like, "Damn, did you see how high those guys were? That shit was so cool. I'm gonna write about shit like that, and it's gonna be cool too." Like now I'm a little older. I'm like, it's not that cool to like be glorifying shit that's like killed like a lot of people that I truly love. No, but you can always look back at a time when I was kind of romanticizing it to a time where now I'm trying to save lives and start nonprofits and get Narcan to people. It's progress, not perfection, right? So, um, I was expecting this documentary to be cool. I just wanted to be cool. I don't know what cool. I don't know how you can make shooting heroin look cool. I just like expected like some really artsy shit, like I don't know, like montages of like me hitting my neck and like flamingos in slow motion and like me ice skating like just with my dick hanging out and just like and like coming at the camera. I don't know. I just thought of weird shit like that and I thought it'd be cool. That's not what he gave me. When he sent me the sizzle, I was all excited. I was like, all right, cool. Got sent to Jeff's laptop. We look at it and we're like, oh my God. Oh my God. What is this? And he had turned it into some like cautionary drug tale. And it was like he's like, what kind of music do you want? I'm like, I want like Brian Jonestown Massacre, Velvet Underground, Spaceman 3, like that kind of shit, like druggy kind of, I don't know, some jam band stuff, maybe some slight electronic, not like dubstep or anything, but like more like just ambient chill step or something. Maybe some drum and bass for montages, a little bit of classical music, underground hip hop for sure. you know, Trying to like kind of be a collage of what my life was like. And I told him the Verve, I was really into the Verve for a little bit. So he puts The Drugs Don't Work by the Verve in the sizzle, which I thought would make good credit songs. And I told him that at one time. But it's like, if you know the song, and if you don't know the song, like pause this right now and like play it on Spotify or like on like a different device and like just imagine this. So he's like playing the Drugs Don't Work, which is like a very depressing song, and it like shows like slow motion, like me graduating in 8th grade graduation with like my cap, and I'm just like throwing it up, and then it like slowly like fades into like a shot of me hitting my neck that we had done with red cam, so it was in like high definition, so it didn't look junky at all. It looked like a fucking Kodak commercial or something, except I was slamming it was Suboxone. I was slamming Suboxone in my neck. It just looked ridiculous, and it was like junkie or drug addict to drug dealer, a story of hope, redemption, in obstacles or some shit like that. I don't remember. I have it. I've put that on Patreon. If I didn't, I definitely have it on my phone, and I will. But I saw it and I was like, oh my God. I was like, what the fuck is this? And I called Zach, and that was like our first really bad fight. Now remember, his girlfriend hated me. Like, oh, who is this guy? He smokes Newports and he stinks. He left cum stains. He left little blotches of cum on our toilet. He's a dirtbag. And Zach's like, I know, but like, that's why he's interesting. She's like, ew, you're fucking weak. You're weak sauce. So, I mean, we'd already fought over his girlfriend, but now I'm like chewing him out. I'm like, what the fuck is this, dude? I was like, from the beginning, I told you I didn't want to make some like weird exploitation movie about my drug addiction. I wanted to make like some like cult drug movie about my drug addiction. And he's like, I just don't get it. And I mean, that's not his fault. He smoked weed, smoked cigarettes, but he wasn't a junkie. How the fuck can you like really do a portraiture of a junkie if you're not a junkie? So I was like, dude, you need to come over here. We got to shoot heroin together, bro. That's the only way you're going to be able to truly nail this film. No, I didn't. But I said, next time you're up here in Santa Barbara, I'm going to give you like all the books that I grew up in. I'll give him Junkie, I'll give him Last Exit to Brooklyn, give him Another Day in Paradise, give him Train Spotting, give him Basketball Diaries, Forced Entries, all that shit. And he's like, okay, fuck it. So I was really disappointed. And the thing about Zach is he like had these really bad anxiety attacks, where like he'd start hyperventilating, and sometimes like he'd be driving and he'd have to like get off the freeway. It was like kind of scary, and I liked the guy and I cared about him. It was sad to see. And I have a temper, and when I'm mad, I mean, I'm not the nicest guy. You know, I say really fucked up stuff. I'm just a piece of shit like that. So, when I'm mad at someone, I'll like yell at them and I'll say like hurtful stuff. And that's not really a good dynamic when you're dealing with somebody that, it gets panic attacks all the time, because I would like induce them. I'd be like, "You fucking idiot. What did you do? What did you do?" Well, I can be like, I'm high energy, just imagine me mad. I mean, I don't shut up when I'm not mad. Just imagine when I'm like actually pissed off. It's not good. So that was like the beginning of kind of like the end, with me and him. It was the start of like a very tumultuous relationship. Now, while this is all going on, um, my probation is not going well. The reason that my probation is not going well is because that therapist is such a cunt. I mean, and I'm sorry to use that language, but she's a fucking cunt. Seriously. She would always tell, "Oh, you're doing great. You're doing absolutely fine." No, I'm not going to tell them you're doing bad. I promise. You're making so much growth. You're making so much effort. And then I'd get a call from him and he'd be like, "She's telling me that you're uncooperative, that you don't talk. You're constantly talking about anal sex. What's wrong with you? That is a woman." And I'm like, "Dude, Josh, she tells me the complete opposite. She tells me how good I'm doing, and she just liked to fuck with me. She played mind games, and she probably had them in on it. Like, yeah, let's just piss him off until he gets so mad that he explodes, and then we can violate him." That's certainly what it seemed like to me, because like it it didn't matter how hard I tried. Like, I'd go in there and I'd just straight lie. You know, I'd be like, "I stopped cutting today." She'd be like, "You're a cutter?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Can I see it?" I'm like, "No, I just do my crotch so people can't see." She's like, "What do you cut?" I'm like, "Stars." She's like, "Why?" It's like, "'Cause I want to be famous." She's like, "Oh, okay." Mm. And then like, next session, I'd be like, "I only drew half a star this week." She's like, "Oh my gosh, so good. How's things with your girlfriend?" I'm like, "Well, fiance now." "Oh, how did you propose to her?" I was like, "Well," and I just make some shit up. I'd be like, "Have you ever seen those things where like somebody proposes in the middle of a park and then everybody's like in on it and everybody starts singing in unison and like balloons drop from the sky and shit like that?" She's like, "You did that?" I was like, "I did." you know was that expensive? I saved up for 10 years. Just wanted her to know her worth. So I just make up like totally bullshit stuff. Like got to a point where like it was kind of like a joke between Karina and I, where like I try to come up with like more and more creative things to say to like, you know, um, fuck with her head. Like I'd go in, I'd like, and because it didn't matter. It didn't matter if I tried hard. It didn't matter if I said ridiculous shit. It didn't matter if I was quiet. It didn't matter what I did. No matter what, every single time I went to those therapy sessions, she gave a bad report to my PO saying that I wasn't trying. Didn't matter what I said. So then I just started fucking with her, and I'd like, I'd come up with these things with Karina, and like we'd be laughing. She'd be like, "You're not gonna say that." I'm like, "I swear to God, I'll say that." You don't think I will? She's like, "I don't think you will." I'm like, "I will." She wouldn't come with me, but what I would do is I'd record it like on my phone, just so I could like show her that I actually did it, or like I'd have her on the phone sometimes, and she would just like listen. And I remember one of the times I went in there, I was like, I just went in there and like acted mad. I was like, she's like, "Oh my God, what's wrong?" I was like, "I don't really want to talk about it." She's like, "Well, Brian, this is a place to talk. That's why you're here, hun." "Okay. Are you sure? Because it's about my sex life." And anytime I'd say anything about my sex life, she was like, she's such a psychiatrist, therapist, psychologist. They're all fucking perverts. Has anyone ever noticed that? You know? They're like, "Okay, any incestual molestation?" "No." "Are you sure?" "Perhaps a distant uncle." No, I just said no, you fucking weirdo. Well, what about a school bus driver? The school bus drivers are doing that pretty frequently to the youngsters. What the fuck, dude? No, nope. I found that a lot with like psychology. So anyway, so like I'd say sex, I'd be like, I don't know, I don't really feel comfortable talking about my sex life, and she'd be like, oh no, please. I'd be like, okay, well, this is what I'm upset about. Karina won't do the walrus with me. She's like, the what? I'm like, the walrus. She's like, what's that? I was like, I really don't feel comfortable going into all this with you. And she's like, Ryan, this is why you're not making any advancements in therapy, because you're not trying. I'm like, okay, here it goes. She won't let me do the walrus. The walrus means that she gives me oral sex and I finish in her mouth. And then I put my hand over her mouth and I hit her as hard as I can in the stomach. And I watch semen spew out of her nose like walrus tusks. She won't let me do that. It pisses me off. All my friends' girlfriends let them do it. She's my fiance. I don't even know. Come on. Like, if she's just my girlfriend, I get it. But like, she's my fiance. She just let me walrus her. And like, like Karina would be listening to this, or maybe I might have recorded that one. I don't really remember. I really did that walrus one though. I did a bunch of shit like that to her because she was fucking with me anyway. So I was like, I'm just gonna make a joke out of this if I have to go to it. It was like something that entertained Karina and I. And she was like, Brian. I was like, what? You're on my side, right? Ryan, you expect me to believe what you just told me. It's like, what? You too, huh? Everybody just does the walrus except for this bitch. I don't get it. Oh, my time's up. I gotta go. Shit like that. So she kept giving me bad reports. I mean, she was giving me bad reports before this. That didn't matter. And they were putting more and more pressure on me. Now, I was going to court for the pimping and pandering. God, someone's just blowing me up. Someone's like texted me like 100 times during the course of this video. It must be must be Mickey. Mickey. I'm curious to see who it is. But so I would like go to court, and every time I went, we would just postpone it. I go there and I'd see my little like squirrely attorney Adam. He'd be like, "Hey, you want me to postpone it?" I'd be like, "Yeah." No. Nope. Let me sign the deal right now. Let me go to jail today. Oh, really? No, fucking idiot. I don't want to. No, just remember that's our plan. Push it, push it, push it. The district attorney was getting mad. It was a young girl. She's like my age, and she wanted to prosecute me, the pimp. The pimp that was going in there with Karina, and I don't know. She just hated me. She hated seeing the alleged pimp go in there with the pregnant girlfriend in the short skirt. I don't know. I just looked tacky, and I didn't have like nice clothes. Going there with my Misfit shirt on, my button up with the Misfit skull or something, thinking that it was like the only nice thing I had. Jeez. Like every 2 seconds I'm getting texts. It's crazy. I thought I put it on airplane mode. So anyway, a lot of things were happening at once. And because Jim was part of the Writers Guild of America, it was going to cost a lot of money. I mean, a lot. Like tens of thousands of dollars to employ him to be the writer for this. Meaning we had to raise some money, even though Max had already committed to quite a bit. I think it was like 80,000 or something, but he'd only given us 10. We had to get a lot more. So we used that promotional material and we started looking for money. And I mean, I looked everywhere. I'd called drug dealers. I called people that grow weed up in Humboldt. That guy Riggy Mars, my friend that's the hip hop artist, is living up in Humboldt. His girlfriend was a stripper up there, and so they had access to a lot of people with money, and they were making good money up there. And I asked them, they couldn't find anybody, and eventually I invited one of the realtors that we used to like scam when we were like squatting in abandoned houses, and we had him come to like one of our little pitch meetings. It was like my parents and him, but we were like only pitching him. But I like made it seem like I was pitching my parents too. Like I went through this whole presentation. He wouldn't do it. So we were kind of like having trouble getting the financing. And I was trying to figure out ways to get it. Zach was willing to put some money into it. He was willing to put like 10 or 15,000, but that doesn't really make too much of a dent. And Max's money was kind of like, you know, it was kind of slow. Now, during this time, one of our strategies to get more money was to try to utilize some of our press connections and get as many articles written about me as possible. So, I'd friend Penthouse, Huffington Post, local newspaper, LA Times, LA Weekly, Vice, just a bunch. I had a bunch of different people, Malibu Magazine. We just had all these different people in the press that basically were asking if they do pieces on me, and we like told them my story. Zach had a bunch of people. He knew the owner of Inked Magazine, so he got them to agree to give me a cover issue. So I started getting all this momentum with stuff like that, and a lot of my days consisted of photo shoots. And I always insisted that Karina was in the photo shoots with me. I just loved the fact that she was pregnant, and like I like wanted to do all these photo spreads with her because I thought it would be really cool once our kid was born someday to, you know, um, to show him that I wanted him included in the picture, like our whole family. Even though he wasn't born yet, I still wanted him to like know that I thought he was special before he was born. So we took like we did a lot of magazine shoots, and it really started going to my head, you know? I started getting arrogant because before all this, I was living in abandoned houses. There were nights where I was sleeping just with a newspaper over me and park benches, and then like smoking weed with high school kids out of apples. Like I'd like wake up and they'd be like blazing it out of an apple. I'd be like, let me hit that. And I'd be like all cold. Like, here you go, man. Do you want a sandwich? I'd be like, yeah. And I'd like hit the apple and like take a bite out of their like ham sandwich that their parents made them, and I'd like curl back up, in my little like sleeping area under the bench. I had gone from all that to like getting interviewed by like Penthouse, to getting interviewed by LA Times reporters, just a bunch of stuff like that. So I wasn't doing the lotto second chance thing anymore. And I was getting like these big shoots, and I was getting all this attention. So it was like a very like dramatic shift for me, and it all started going to my head. And I think when like my breakdown, when it like really started, was, I don't know if I had talked about this yet, but it was right around the time that we went to go find out what sex our kid was going to be. It was a gender reveal, and we went to go to the doctor. He's a really nice guy, and he was showing us, the sonogram thing. And he looked at our son and told us that it was a boy. I think that I'd already gone over this. But they also said that he had a hole in his heart, and that might be Down syndrome, or it could be worse. He could have like serious heart issues and not come out normal, like he'd have serious issues. So that was like really heartbreaking. I'm not sure if I'd gone into that yet. This is all like around the same time, and that time period's a little foggy. But when I started noticing that there was a cognitive slip was when we found out that Nico had that he was a boy, and that he had a hole in his heart. And we can get into all that and start like the new series breakdown on the next video, and start getting into like really what happened right before I went to prison, when I had like just a complete public meltdown. And I think that part's pretty interesting. I kind of glazed over it on the album, but there's a lot to it. So like, comment, subscribe, check out my Patreon, patreon.com/Ryan Leone. I appreciate you guys. Have a good night. Stay safe. Palabra.